This is how to sumo deadlift for beginners. So I'm going to cover how to set up and execute the lift, as well as a couple things to avoid. So first off, I'm going to cover stance width. I would recommend beginning with a stance that's roughly 2 to 3 times your hip width. And then in the long run, we're looking for a stance that whenever you're down at the bar, your shins are roughly vertical or ever so slightly inside of that. So for me, I'm 6'1". I can use the rings on the bar as a reference point and set up my feet where they're in the middle of that and my shins are just inside of it. Next off, let's cover toe angle. I would recommend pointing your feet out at like roughly 45 degrees, because if you go much straighter than that, then your knees come forwards and get in the way of the bar. But if you go much more flared than that out to the sides, then you're shortening your base of support front to back, and it gets really hard to balance throughout the lift. You want to set up where the bar is over the middle of your foot, and that's the middle of your whole foot, not just the part that you can see. So that's going to be roughly that top 1/3 of your laces, kind of right about here. Now that you've got your stance, let's cover what to do with the upper body. So the arms, I would recommend having them hang straight down, because if you go inside of shoulder width, you generally end up internally rotated and it gets hard to lock out at the top, and you can end up with some pec cramps. But if you go outside of shoulder width, then it gets much harder to maintain that upper back position during the lift. And also it increases the range of motion, because rather than locking out down here, now you have to lock out up here. So the only people that I would recommend going outside of shoulder width for is very narrow lifters who need to go slightly wider in order to have their hands on the knurling of the bar rather than on the smooth, so that they have a better grip. Think about arms hanging straight down, reaching long down to the floor so that you get your shoulder blades pulled down. And then from there, I recommend people set their brace at the top. So breathe in and try and expand your stomach out in all directions into your belt. And then you're going to hold that during the duration of the setup and the rep. The reason I recommend people breathe and brace at the top is because it's much easier to set that position when you're standing upright compared to whenever you're already hunched over down at the bar. So once you've set your brace, you're going to get down to the bar, set your grip, and then push into the floor ever so slightly so that you can create tension in your body and pull the slack out of the bar. Once you've pushed into the floor, you're going to drive your knees out and push your hips forwards so that you can wedge into the bar, create tension, and get the best starting position that you can. I'm going to show you all of those things together now. So if you set your brace at the top and then you wedge in by driving the knees out and your hips forwards, then the rest of the lift is pretty intuitive. You just have to push your feet into the floor and stand upright.